Welcome to another episode of Real Deal Investing. I'm Jerron Kelley, your host. I'm a real estate attorney and multifamily investor, and my co-host, Larry Mastropieri, real estate broker and also a multifamily investor. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. What's up, guys?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? We're excited today. We've got Benjamin Jean, a.k.a. Benji Jean.
That's
He's
correct.
my buddy, so buddies are allowed to call him Benji.
Call me whatever you want.
Benji, awesome guy, a good friend of mine now. We've been working together for over 10 years. Time flies, my friend.
It really does.
And the grays are growing, yes.
Body's falling apart.
Benji's a very impressive gentleman. Benji owns Keyes Property Management. Benji created that company, and he's grown that to a very impressive scale. They now manage between 800 and 900 units across the state of Florida, and that number is growing along with your business, and we'll dive into that. Benji also has recently dived into the syndication investing model, and you bought a nice big commercial property up in North Carolina. Want to talk about that and what your experiences are with syndicating properties and purchasing properties using the syndication method. But let's just get started and have the audience get to know you. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, kind of, how you got to this place or got up to the point of getting into property management.
Well, you were doing a great job. You could just keep going. So thank you for having me. I come from Michigan, so I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit.
And I only learned the word Michigander in the past 10 years. I went to a sports bar that was over by my house, and I noticed that they had all the flags, Michigan State. Walked in, started talking to people. Everyone I talked to at the bar was from Michigan, and they said, yeah, we're all Michiganders. I said, what? Is that a type of duck or a goose?
It's a term. We have some terms.
Good.
It's a great place to be from.
All the nicest people I've met are from Michigan.
I'm very happy I'm from there and that I don't live there anymore. But I suppose you could say that I grew up in the business. So my family started in the distribution business, supplying apartment complexes with everything from washers and bolts to appliances. And over time, we started to buy apartment complexes as well and commercial real estate. And so as I grew up, they didn't start me in the office, right? They started me in the field, putting in toilets and sinks, and I guess that really built in me this concept that you need to know what you're doing in order to be able to sell it, which is what I do in everything today even, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But through the years, we acquired apartment complexes and commercial real estate through our family and managed that ourselves up in Michigan.
And most of those are in Michigan?
Yes, those are all in Michigan.
In Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the suburbs of Detroit. We did, about 20 years ago, started converting older buildings into loft rentals, which is a great concept, and that did extremely well. After college, I went back to Michigan and worked with my family for a few years until I realized I didn't want to work with my family. It's different, In some ways, I said, where I live, you can send the check. And so it was either move back to New York or come down to Florida. And I had to do the calculation in my head of, do I want to go live in a box in the sky and work 90 hours a week? Or do I want to come down to Florida, start my own business, and have the sunshine on my face?
And maybe not have to work at all. Yeah.
Well,
most Floridians.
My problem is I can't sit still for 5 minutes. I always have to be doing something. Yeah. But I came down here and actually started a house sitting business.
Whoa.
So we knew a lot of seasonal residents, snowbirds, and so started a company and grew that to about 600 homes in the country club communities. But that was very hard to scale, and it wasn't a great return or great enough. I started
Sounds like you did scale it, kind of.
Yeah.
What was the difficulty in scaling beyond 600 homes?
Well, the biggest issue in that business was that I was competing against the neighbors and the cleaning people, right? Okay. And so you couldn't charge enough for what we did. And we really brought that business into the next, century. We had it on iPads. Owners would get reports every time we went to the house. But it just didn't, starting a family, wanted to build something on my own, and that just wasn't cutting it. So I was fortunate enough to meet Mike Pappas, who's the owner of the Kies company, and they were looking to build out a property management division at the time.
And for those who don't know, maybe you're outside of Florida or in North Florida or Central Florida where Kies doesn't have a big presence. Kies is a very large brokerage, mostly started in the South Florida area, has a huge presence down here, growing into Central Florida and expanding. We'll get into that later, but just want to give the background on Kies.
Absolutely. It's a 96-year-old company, 97.
Okay. And about how many offices now?
So about 55 offices.
55 offices.
From Homestead to New Smyrna Beach. About 3,500 agents.
Okay, huge.
So it's a fairly large company.
And there's Kies, the brokerage, which Mike Pappas owns, and then you have Kies Property Management, which you partner with Mike on.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to lay that out.
Yeah, no problem. So fortunate enough to partner with Mike and the Pappas family, and that was 8 years ago. So we have been building this company ever since.
Amazing. So in 8 years, you've grown to nearly 900 doors. That's a good number. Yeah.
It is a good number.
Growth.
Right.
Very good growth.
I have what's called the disease of never enough. And so I need more.
So you mean you're American?
Right. So I'd like to continue growing. I have a number in my head, which maybe I'll share later on.
Okay.
Where I'd like to get to.
Good to have goals. Listen,
Absolutely.
and those goalposts can always be moving. They can always be shifting. And there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As long as, I think one of the key things, though, and it's hard to do, I think we all sometimes fail to do this, is every once in a while when you hit those markers, you got to do one of two things. You got to stop and you got to look backwards and you have to pat yourself on the back. And sometimes I also learned somewhere that I think it was from Patrick Bet-David. He's a podcaster and he gave really good advice. And he said, you should give yourself a gift. Not give yourself a gift every month or every 3 months, but when you hit one of those impressive goals, if it's a new watch, if it's something that you wanted, a great new pair of shoes or a new suit or whatever that is, give yourself a gift when you hit those milestones. But that, I'm getting off course here. But
and I think the other thing for me, the issue I have with that, typically in this circumstance, is I don't set the goal clearly enough. So I have this like aspiration, and it's not like super defined. So then I've never hit it. You see what I'm saying? So then there's never a moment to give yourself a gift or succeed or like celebrate, right? So then it's like it's just always perpetually moving the goalpost and or just like, okay, yeah, cool, we did that, but like that I didn't define it.
Yeah,
we joke that we have the what's next attitude, right? So instead of looking back, right, you hit that marker and you celebrate it for 5 minutes and you say, what's next?
Yeah,
right.
That's true. Yeah.
And I'm not sure yet. I go back and forth whether that's a good thing or not.
Totally.
Because when are you satisfied? You know?
Yeah.
And so there is an element of that which I struggle with, right? Which is, when is it enough?
Yeah.
Right? When will I find that peace in knowing that I'm a success or I've achieved the success that I want?
And that's where I'm like, I need to set this clearly defined thing so that way when we do hit it, it's very clear that we hit it. The other issue I have is when we hit these targets, it's like, can we do it again? Because business is especially sales business. It's you did deals, you close these deals. Are we going to continue to be able to generate those leads, close those deals into perpetuity, right? So that's like
making sure that your base that you've just created of X number of
100%.
deals is solid. That you not only have that kind of locked in, but now you can get to X plus Y.
Exactly.
Well, in the brokerage business, that's unique because every deal is
you do it, it's
business.
done. Yep.
That's why I like my business,
and I was going to make that
an
comment.
Annuity,
Yep.
right? Which is that rents go up, rents due every month, right? Every door that comes in is more money and more success. But that is still the runaway train of when is it enough?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Agreed. But just last point on about goals is one of the things that my business partner and I do. It's not always perfect. It's not like it's on January 1st of every year, but we try at the beginning of each year to have a goals meeting, and we have our short-term, medium-term, and longer-term goals, and we look back on the last year. We do some of the short-term goals of, hey, we need to tweak our website, or we need to do this small thing to get to the medium term, and then the medium term to the long term, and what those tasks are. And it's funny because I'll keep some of those notes from prior years, and I'll go back and I'll look, and I'll be like, wow, we were looking for X revenue, and we've not just hit that, but we've surpassed that significantly. So that's a way, when it's in writing, you can actually see it and go back and look at it. So just something that we do. I don't know if that's
tracking it is important too, right? Because if you're not tracking it, you have no idea what's happening too. So come on, no goal or unclear goal and no tracking, or one of the two aren't done. It's like you have no sense.
The trick with that is that you have to be conservative, and I'll tell you why. So when I first started Keyes Property Management, I had projected out 10 years, right? And how much money we would make, right, if we hit 1,000 properties.
Got it.
And I may have been a little generous to the company. There are things you don't realize, right, when you're starting something, and that's okay. But every time we have our annual meetings, my business partner will come to me and say, hey, can you pull up that spreadsheet? Because I'd like to see where we are versus what we projected. And every time I say, Mike, you know where we are versus what we projected. and it's just a running joke at this point, right?
Yeah.
But it is important to have, your goals and be conservative in your approach to things.
Yeah, agreed. So you grew up in the business. Yep. You came down here to South Florida. You started the house sitting business. You transitioned out of that. I'm just curious. Did you just fold that up over time?
I did it. So I had another partner from growing up in Michigan who was down here. He enjoyed that side of the business, and I enjoyed the Keyes Property Management side, the annuals. And so we grew them to be pretty equal and then split equity.
Got it.
Right.
That's so perfect. So you exited the business that you didn't really enjoy, and you kept the one you did, and vice versa. So you created a win-win.
That is right.
Okay,
so
good.
It worked out very well.
Was that pre-planned at some point? Were you guys like, hey, I don't want to stay in this. Let's figure this out?
It wasn't. Okay. I think it got to a point, and we can talk about business partners and relationships ad nauseum. But it got to a point where we saw what each of the businesses was producing, where it could go, and I think life gets involved as well. Personal lives, spouses, roles, and jobs, and there was an opportunity for him that didn't require him to be pushing and grinding, and so when you lose a little bit of that drive, it becomes a little harder to have that person with you. And so, and to this day, like we're both very happy with what we built together and how we've separated it. But finding the right partner is absolutely critical.
Absolutely critical.
And so I think we both recognized that we had our time, that it was time to go our separate ways, and we did it as amicably as you possibly could.
It's great. It's good. That's a good story. I mean, not every partnership lasts forever, and if you can exit the partnership with integrity and without a lot of ill will, that's great.
What people don't realize is that it is actually more than a marriage.
Totally.
You spend more time with your business partner than you do with your life partner.
100%.
And if there is not understanding and communication, right, things can go wrong very quickly. So you need to be very, very, I don't know what the right term is, thoughtful and careful in who you become partners with if you're going to take on a partner, right? Because that can be the difference between success and massive failure.
Sure. The upside of a partner that I've learned, because my business partner, he's amazing, awesome. I was fortunate. I don't know if it's luck or fortune or if we just chose each other properly. But I always say this, that his skills and strengths really round out my weaknesses and vice versa. And I think that's so important in a partnership is to, if there were two Jerrons in my law firm, we would just be spinning in circles. I mean, I have certain strengths and I have a lot of weaknesses, but luckily we're able to complement each other in that. And we also have different personalities too, so they typically don't conflict. I'm not saying we've never had conflict at all. Of course, it's natural to happen, but you really do. I'm agree with you completely. You got to pick your partner properly. Think about that long and hard before you just jump into business with someone. It's so painful to extract yourself than just getting into it the right way.
Right, and it's also what you're bringing to the table. So,
of course,
it's very easy to hire away certain portions of a business, right? Accounting, administrative work, things like that are very easy to hire away. You can't hire away as easily the sales or the people skills that come with running a business and the temperament.
Correct.
And you will be tested, always, right? No day is easy, right? I promised you I wouldn't swear, so I won't use the word that I'm thinking of, but there is something that happens every day, ends in "-ing, and you don't know when it's coming every day, but something will happen every day, and you have to have that temperament, and you have to have a partner that's going to say, yeah, let's give that a try, right? With new ideas, with things that you want to do and grow. It's similar to a marriage, but you're with them far longer.
Agreed. So circling back to the story, so you started your property management business with your business partner that you had in the house sitting business concurrently. When you started that business, you started also with Kies right away, or did you start independent of Kies?
Yeah, we started that independent in 2008. Okay. And then we didn't really start talking with Kies until 2014.
Got it. So 6 years independent.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
And how was that being independent of Kies versus now being with Kies, which I'm sure is, a
market difference. So being independent was great. It allowed me to really learn different aspects of business, right? So now I'm fortunate enough to have a marketing department, a legal department, IT department. These were all things that we didn't have. And we had to go and scrap together what we wanted to do and build. Now, that took a lot more work on our parts individually, but it also allowed me to learn a lot more of the business, right? So no matter what I do, I think I was explaining to you this when we had dinner last week, I always start whatever new project, I will start at the bottom. I will do it myself, and I will learn it so that I can teach it, right?
Amazing.
Whether, there was a story where when I was with my family, they didn't start me in the office, right? They started me in the field. And I remember this story till the day I die. I was out in the field and we were replacing a sink, a faucet in a sink. And one of the guys, who was a little gruff, he says, "Hey, cut me a piece of Teflon tape." Well, I didn't know that Teflon tape wasn't sticky. So I hold the piece up and I go to cut it, and the whole roll rolls out. Okay, and I think I was like 17 maybe, and he just turns to me and he goes, "You don't get out of the office much, do you?"
That's great.
And from that day on, I wanted to learn how to do things, whether it was installing a sink, a faucet, a toilet, building up any type of business that we do. I'm the one doing it first, and that was a big difference coming into Kies, was that the expectation was there that I would be in the office. And for the first 2 years, I wasn't. I was out grinding and learning and understanding, because it is a little bit of a different business than the house sitting. And so I wanted to make sure that I knew every piece of the business before I could teach it.
Got it. Okay.
So another thing with Kies is that, we have a more robust back office and help, but we also have a built-in feeder of business, right? So when we started the house sitting business, I was calling friends and family in different states and asking for the country club directories because it listed both addresses. So I could identify who was a seasonal resident in these country club communities. And we were calling and faxing, believe it or not. We didn't have email in
that
there yet.
ages you, yes.
And so it was a different type of work, right? We were going at it. With Kies, fortunately, we have a network, we have the mechanism and the vehicle for that business to just come to us.
It's great.
Which is very nice.
It is.
So right now, are you doing any marketing direct to property owners?
So we don't typically.
Okay.
We have a website, we have the social media, but I do the analysis every year, dollar for dollar, right?
Sure.
What is it going to cost me to really put in the money for social media, pay-per-click, doing all that?
Mailers.
Client acquisition costs.
I've done there were websites where you could pay for leads.
Sure.
And what I found was that the business doesn't stay as long and the quality is not as great. I decided that I would rather pay our agents to bring us the business. And that's a much better use of the dollar spend. And so that's what we really do, is we really internally focus to get the business.
That makes sense. What does that model look like, paying the agents?
So it depends. Typically we pay them by unit, and that will vary based upon commercial, single family,
Sure.
or vacation rental, which is a little bit more lucrative. And so we'll pay them, anywhere from like $250 to $1,000 a unit.
One-time fee.
One-time fee, right?
for referring
But
business,
the difference in our management company is that we allow them to continue doing the leasing so that they can keep the commissions as well.
If they don't want to do the leasing, you also
We can take that
care of
on.
it?
Right.
Got it.
But that was the deal, is that we don't compete with you. We're your placeholder.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that that business stays with you long term. And as Jerron can attest, when agents start getting involved in property management activities, the lawsuits start flying.
Yeah.
Sure. That's always my concern, because I do, as you know, I do a fair amount of brokerage business here in Boca, and so we'll sell property, and then it'll be, and I deal with a handful of investors like Jerron, as an example, and they're like, hey, do you do management? I'm like, no, I don't do management. I sell property. Do you do leasing? Yeah, we'll do it, but no, we don't advertise to do leasing, right? We advertise to broker deals, buy and sell. So then they're like, hey, who do you know that has, that can manage it? And it's always this question of, do I want to give it up to someone because they're going to potentially take my business long term? Not the leasing part, but these guys got to continue to transact with me, or I want to continue to build that relationship. Right. And so
you
that's
want to keep them in your orbit.
Right.
Yeah.
And by giving them out, sometimes that's not ideal, but what you're offering is a little bit better than
Absolutely.
that.
And I am maniacal about protecting the relationship. So we do business with Compass, with Remax, with Keller. We have agents. As you know, in this business, agents travel, right, between brokerages.
So they could have started with Keyes, done business
That's
with
right.
you, then they moved
and
to
they
Compass,
know
and they still like you.
They can set their clock that business is coming back to them.
It's great.
Right? And that is something that we offer to other brokerages, is the ability to help them with their management. Because I say the same thing to our Keyes agents, right? When I'm talking to them and I say, if you go and you refer this out to a property management company, the odds are they're a brokerage as well. And you can kiss the customer goodbye.
Exactly. Always.
Right?
Yep.
We're Keyes. We're in front of them all year long. Keyes, we'll get the business back to you. But with other brokerages who I've worked with people for years, we send it out back to them as well.
So do you have an in-house agent that will list for rental, and I'm
Correct.
assuming for sale as well, if need be, or how does that work?
So on the property management side, we do not do sales, period.
Okay, period.
The end. If you're working for me, you're either a leasing agent, okay, or a property manager. And my property managers are not allowed to do brokerage services.
See, that's the move.
It is,
Yep.
because what I find is human nature dictates that people are going to go for the biggest dollar sign. And if you have somebody doing both, something's going to falter. And usually it's the management. My people need to be inspecting properties, handling maintenance, move in, move out inspections, collection of rent. It should not be, oh, but I'm selling this $1.2 million house, and that's going to be a big paycheck. So that's most important to me. So that is a very, very big piece that I
Smart.
don't allow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is smart.
So I'm guessing in your system, it's like, this is the agent associated with this deal.
Yes.
When that person maybe that likes the manager because they're dealing with them so often calls, hey, I want to list this property. It's just like, yep, no problem. I'll put you in touch with X
100%.
person that sold you it.
Yep. As a referring agent, you go into our system, and our system actually notifies them 90 days out from the end of the lease that the
that's
lease is
nice.
coming due.
Okay.
So our system is pretty great, and it notifies everybody of everything, and including the owner and the tenant, but the agent is also involved. So you go into our system immediately.
Great.
So what about lease renewals? Do your agents tend to try to charge for that or get involved in a lease renewal, or how does that?
Yeah, lease renewals are interesting
Yeah.
because, and I do a lot of training for our agents, not because we do the leases most often, but because they make a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And what we find is that in the standard documents, a renewal fee equal to the first month is listed. Well, no owner is going to want to pay a full month. You're not photographing, you're not showing, you're just writing a contract. But what I always argue is that you are a licensed professional. You should be getting compensated for drafting a document. What that amount is should be discussed with the owner up front.
What do you find standard? I'm curious, because I bump into this from time to time.
So it varies.
Yeah.
What I believe and what I find are two different things.
I'd like to hear both.
So what I find is a mess. Okay? And so normally I have to come in and arbitrate a little bit. And so I think it's fair between $250 and $500 as a flat fee to write a renewal.
Okay.
Right?
So that's what I've charged in the past, somewhere in that space.
Right.
Okay.
Now, do I think half a month is a little greedy? I do. Am I to stand in the way of someone making a living? Absolutely not. You know, I always say to the agents, you know, because we have some agents that charge first month's rent for the lease and some that charge 10%. And I say, look, if you can get 20, God bless you, right? You're a hard worker, get what you can. But you have to have those conversations up front with the owner about renewals. And most people don't. They don't think about it. Everyone wants that signature so they can get that listing. They don't think about what happens next.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Sorry, I know I've taken us off topic.
No, I love this. This is the topic.
Okay,
This is fantastic. How do you market to your internal Kies agents? How does that look?
Yeah, so we have, every time a new listing is taken, they're going to get an automated email from me with a whole host of our service offerings that they can even just forward on to their clients. We do office meetings, we do lunch and learns, we do everything you can think of. Most often, you know, we're not really thought about. You have to stay top of mind. And in real estate, you have people coming at you from every direction, right? You have the mortgage companies, you have the title companies, you have the insurance companies.
Oh yeah, I'm putting so many people to spam every day, right?
It's unbelievable,
you know,
right?
It's just too
much. I
much.
spend an hour a month going through and unsubscribing from emails.
Yeah.
And so it becomes, there's too much coming at people. And until they need it or until they have a problem, right, it is throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks.
But you want to be in front of them when they need it.
Exactly.
That's correct.
That's the trick.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
What I do is, I'm a data guy. So we have a very good system internally, and I go through and I look at a target list. So I can see which agents of the 3,500 have done the most leases year to date or this month. And I'll call them up, or my property managers will call them up and take them to lunch. How can we get your business? Can we get one? Right? You may have 5. Can we get 1? Can you introduce us? Right? Because one of the big things is I will never go around the agent.
Of course.
They don't like that.
Of course.
Sure.
I tried that once.
You burned the bridge.
I tried sending letters directly to owners, and that did not go very well.
Yeah.
So we really do. I'm more of a rifle approach person than a shotgun approach.
Very targeted.
person. Yeah. Because it is not every owner is going to want property management. Not every agent wants to sell your service for you.
And what is the objection in the mind of the agent? I would think this would be amazing. I would want to throw your services out there. If I'm an agent doing leasing, they make a little extra money on it. They're assured that the owner at least knows that there's the option of management, and that if you are managing it, it probably means the property is going to be well taken care of. They're not going to get as many calls. What is their objection in their mind?
Normally it's price.
Okay.
Right? Especially now with the margins being where they are, interest rates, HOA assessments coming down, insurance rates going up. The numbers have dwindled in terms of profit, right? But most often it's price. And what they don't understand is that we tend to make them more money. Right. So the educational component is the biggest barrier, and it's hard to get that information through to them. So, for example, the two pieces that I always use when I'm talking to an owner who may be struggling with price. And I think we're very fair on prices, but they say, well, it might be a little too much money. And I say, well, one, where do you live? Well, I live in New York. Okay. So let me ask you a question. When you get a phone call from a tenant and they say the AC doesn't work, what do you do? And they say, well, I call the AC guy, right? I say, okay, perfect, right? It's an easy phone call. And I say, what's typically the problem, right? Well, the drain line either backs up or the coils are dirty. Right?
Where the batteries need to be replaced in the thermostat.
Well, we beyond that, right?
Right.
So we're going to use this example.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, so he goes over and he clears the drain line and he cleans the coils. And how much was that? He said, well, $375, $400. Okay. Who changed the filter? I don't know. Did you check that? Well, I don't know. Did the AC guy check that? I don't know. Right? I said, well, so you understand in our leases, it's the tenant's responsibility to change the air filter every month. And that's the first thing we check, because if the air filter's not changed, that's what leads to dirty coils and backed up drain lines. Thereby, we charge it back to the tenant because it was their fault. That's $400 that you just spent that you didn't need to spend. That's 2 months management fee.
Yeah.
Right? Let's keep going. Right? Mm-hmm. And I also say, how much do you value your time at? Now, I've never had an investor say less than $100 an hour. Right? Whether they make that or not. And so I say, okay, well, how many hours a month are you spending on your property to do maintenance, financials, depositing checks, whatever the case may be? Well, 3 to 4 hours a month. Okay? So $300 or $400. What's my charge? Is it less than that? Right? So I'm saving you money again. Mm-hmm. Right? People don't naturally think that way. And so it does become a little more difficult to explain where the benefits are.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Beyond keeping the property looking nicer, having eyeballs on it, making sure the tenants don't have unreported guests, pets, unreported maintenance, things of that nature.
Got it. And what are the objections of the agents when they're blocking you from the introduction to the client? What could those be?
So there's a couple things. One is they just don't want to get involved. But I think the bigger issue...
Not my problem.
Right. That's the owner's decision.
That's their decision. I don't want to force anything down their throat.
Yeah, I think another one is it's their reputation on the line.
Exactly.
Okay? And they're worried that anything that happens will come back and look poor to them and make them look bad. So it's an ego thing.
Got it.
Right? And it's understandable.
Yeah, it's a real concern.
It is a real concern.
It's a real concern.
I totally understand that. And that's a cross we bear as a company that has Kies in its name. If I were Florida Property Management, they would probably think nothing of it, right? But we're an in-house company, which means that we're held to a higher standard.
Sure.
And I'm actually okay with that.
I would challenge that objection with just, and coming from a real estate broker who has to refer out stuff all the time, if you don't have the referrals, you're not providing maybe all the service you can provide, because that's part of our job, to kind of know people that you can help them with, whether it's AC guy, inspector, appraiser, whatever, property manager. And so if you don't test and find the guy that you actually like, so you got to give you a shot in order to know if that's going to work or not. And if it doesn't work, yeah, that sucks. You kind of blew up a relationship to a degree, or hopefully you can salvage it. And then you got to move on to the next property management company to see if they work on the next opportunity.
You know what I say, and it doesn't directly relate, but what I say to our agents, because a lot of them get in trouble when they get involved in maintenance, right? And I say, here's what you say. Here's the name of 3 companies. I urge you to check their references.
Exactly.
Right? You're the source of the source. You're not the source. And so be mindful, but you do have to be the expert. You have to have these tools in your tool belt to be able to be great at customer service too.
I've denied or declined to give references on certain occasions for certain things for certain clients because of different reasons.
Of course, you don't have to say anymore.
Maybe vague. And whenever I do that, I tend to find that they're more upset about that sometimes up front.
Sure.
It's like, oh, he's not
Not being helpful.
He's not being helpful.
He's not being a resource.
Yeah,
for
he's
me,
not the guy.
Right.
He's not the guy. You know.
And even yesterday, right? So again, I'm very big on communication, okay, across the board. And so there are always going to be issues that arise. Yesterday I had to fire a customer. They just weren't following the protocols. They were getting in their own way. And the difference was I called the agent first, and I said, I just want to give you a heads up. I know it's your customer. This is what we did and how we tried for the last 3 months, and it's just not working. And that agent was super grateful, right? They understood. But if I hadn't made that phone call and he just got an angry phone call from that owner, we'd be dealing with a different story. Mm-hmm. So communication can really prevent a whole host of issues that arise.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's also how the parting of ways happens too. I mean, you're probably not going to do it in an aggressive, angry way or something putting the client on the defensive. You'll probably do a, hey, this isn't working. Exactly I'm sorry, we're not living up to your expectation. Kind of like it's me, not you kind of thing. The old breakup, when you're 18 years old,
that's right. Old,
with your first girlfriend. It's me, not you kind of thing. I've done that before where we have to let clients go and they're nightmares as clients, but I'm not going to tell them that. Right. I'm just going to let them know that here's what we offer for our services, and obviously we're not meeting your needs. Yeah. Therefore, we're not a good fit, and it would be better if you find another attorney to handle your business.
And a shout out
normally they go away kind of semi-quietly.
Right. Yeah. And a shout out to Kelley and Grant. So I work with Corey quite frequently.
He's our litigation attorney.
Yep. And he'll tell you that I often send my rough drafts to him for editing because
before you fire away.
Right.
Cooler heads
someone actually said to me last week, and this goes to the communication, always speak in rough draft, which I thought was profound.
I love that.
That's good.
Right?
I love that.
We were dealing with some heavier topics, right? But I really loved that because I have to type in rough draft and speak in rough draft quite frequently, and then put your ego aside and send the email or make the phone call without that ego.
Yes.
Right? The final draft.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I know we've talked about this before, but you get angry about something, the client's being a nightmare, you type up the email and just put it away. Let it sit in your drafts. Maybe for that, it's 3 o'clock. Let it sit till the next morning. Wake up, get a fresh look at it. Or I'll even send that on to my partner, for example, or to Corey or someone in my office, one of the attorneys. Hey, look at this. Before I fire away this, and here's the situation, is there anything I should change? And then they'll tell me, these 2 sentences, these are your ego talking. Delete those.
100%.
And then I'm like, I really want to say
totally,
right.
Yeah.
But okay, fine.
We are human after all.
Of course.
And, it's the person that can take a step back and say, maybe I shouldn't be sending it this way. This could come across as aggressive. This could, exacerbate the problem. And change it is the person that becomes most successful.
And what I so often think of is I think of our Google reviews. We've been so passionate about it the last couple of years. Now we're up to close to 350 reviews, and we just got back up to a 4.9. And I think, if I fire this email off this way, they could easily go give a 1-star review, and then now I need 10 or 20 5-star reviews to make up for that 1 star. So
it's funny you say that. So I have like a saying that I live by, and it's an old Stoic saying, and it's, we suffer more in imagination than reality, right? And I am an expert at having a full conversation, playing out 5 different chess games of a specific situation in my head, right, and suffering all day long, than just dealing with it and
ripping the Band-Aid off. Just,
let it be.
Yeah. Correct. Yep. And so I have to remind myself of that probably 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Right? That, just do the next right thing, be the bigger person, and things will work out just fine.
Right. Yeah. True.
You mentioned price. Mm-hmm. You don't have to give what you charge if you want. I'm just curious what and I think maybe other people would be too, what the range of pricing is for different asset types, maybe specifically multifamily, because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so again, that's a little harder because when you're talking about multifamily, you're talking about a very big swath of options, right? You have technically like a 6-unit
Yeah.
You know,
It could be duplex to
apartment.
200
Right.
unit apartments. So
Up to 200 units,
Yeah.
right? So it does vary. You know, on the single family, we're typically between 8 and 10%.
Okay.
Okay. And then commercial and multifamily, depending on the size, is going to be between 3 and 7 usually.
Okay.
All right. We have had, you know, the quadplexes that are still at 8, 9.
Do you do a lot of those management?
That's most of our business is the single family and small multifamily.
Okay.
The vacation rentals, so the Airbnbs and the Verbos of the world, we have what I call the Pride line. So we won't take specific properties. It's a tough enough business, and so we have luxury.
So the quality of those properties need to be pretty
Pristine.
dialed. Yeah.
We have a very, very, we have a fantastic system and standard for that. And those are typically 20% of the gross nightly rate.
That makes sense.
Right. Which is still even a very good deal for what we're providing.
I mean, that's market. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen above
actually.
that. I think a little
the
better than
difference
market.
for us is that we don't mark anything up. Okay. So when we were developed to help build the brokerage side and keep the business. So we don't mark up maintenance, which I think is a
That's
conflict
huge.
of interest.
Yep.
Right.
A lot of
if I'm in
property
charge
managers do.
of right, and I have nothing against them.
Yeah, it's a
but
revenue
for me, when I go and I talk to the owner, I can sleep at night knowing that they know that no matter what comes through, I'm looking out for them. Because if I'm marking every piece of maintenance up, what's to stop me from saying yes to every frivolous maintenance request? Because we get a ton of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we don't mark up legal fees, so everything's a pass-through cost on that as well. We really work for our management fee.
And all those are third parties? Do you have in-house, like obviously Jerron's services or Corey services are third party, but what about maintenance? Do you have in-house maintenance crews?
We don't.
Like? Okay.
But we have our maintenance people that they basically work for us. Okay. We don't want to carry their insurance. I don't want to deal with their licenses. They have to provide that to us. But we keep our vendors
very busy.
Very, very busy.
Sure.
And they know that we give them a lot of business and we get preferred pricing for our owners. So we save in that regard too for the owners.
Have you ever considered in-housing it? I've seen other management companies do it.
Yeah, I've done the analysis.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So the unit count is there. Okay. But it is running multiple other businesses.
Yeah.
So if you say, for example, you know, I want to have an air conditioning division, right? You're running an air conditioning company.
Yep.
Yeah. And ultimately, my concept was we should have Keyes Maintenance, which is a totally separate division. Because if you think about it, even on your brokerage, how many of your customers need air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, all of these things constantly? So there is a business model there. It is just not something I have the bandwidth for at this time to build.
That's the trick. Right. Yeah.
Because it's a big, you know, you look at these companies that do the maintenance contracts. I don't know if you want me to say exactly what I think of those companies. But here in Florida, it's hard to please.
Well, the first thing is the air conditioning. I'm dealing with this twice in the past week with clients that, you know, the tenants complain about the air conditioning. It's 95 degrees and 100% humidity.
Right.
The maintenance contract isn't going to get a vendor out there for 2 to 3 days.
Then they're going to have to order the part,
right? And
because they
that
don't
could take
keep
a
them
week,
in-house.
maybe
right?
longer.
That's
Yep.
how those models work.
And even the
And I
law
don't wanna be
allows
that
for
guy.
a 7-day notice to cure. But what happens invariably is many of the tenants, which I kind of understand and I
Sure.
get it, they go and call their air conditioning company, and their air conditioning company charges $450, and they say, I'm not paying this as a part of rent, I'm deducting it.
Right.
And then it gets into a battle between the landlord saying, well, I have this contract and I wasn't going to be charged for it, so why should I
Right.
allow you to deduct the $450? It's, So I'm sure you deal with this.
We don't allow maintenance contracts.
Yeah,
for that very
that makes
reason,
sense.
because
Smart.
it just causes a ton more work,
Yep.
and we have to call, you know,
And
legal.
delays. And just quality in general. It's hard to find guys that do quality work. And then if you're running your own department, you got to find those guys. You got to know those guys are doing quality work.
Right. Well, and I can speak to, you know, Jerron told me before, speak about some of your failures, so I'm going to speak to a failure.
Awesome.
No,
We love
but
failures.
one of the things, right? And I got plenty of them. Believe me.
We do too. Don't worry.
So one of the things that you find is when you do find a great vendor, right? All of a sudden, all of your property managers want to use them. and you burn them out, right? So you have to be careful with who you are, who you're getting, and how you're using them.
And have backups too. You always
We
want
have
at least one backup
right.
for everything.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So typically, I separate our portfolios by county. So each county has a team that handles the portfolio. And each county has their own set of vendors. Now, there is some crossover,
Of course.
right?
Deerfield and versus Boca, you're 5
Right.
miles away or on, same
Correct.
border. Yeah.
But I have made it very clear that you have to have your own set of vendors, because if everything is going wrong at once, who are you going to call, right? And that is something that we're very, very big on, is response time, right? If it's a knob that fell off of a kitchen cabinet, okay. But if it's AC, refrigerator, or water, it's 2 to 3 hours
Yeah.
max that we're there.
Got
I'm
it.
pretty militant about that.
That's good.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a different. I mean, it's a difference between
You have to-
having those problems afterwards with
Yeah.
the tenants and getting it resolved.
And you have to put yourself in the tenant's shoes. What would I want if
Absolutely.
I'm in this situation? I would want very expedited service, and that helps with tenant retention, of course, as you know. Obviously,
Absolutely.
keeping a happy tenant. Tenants know that if you get an AC guy out there within 3 hours of them having a problem, they're going to be pleased. If it takes 48 hours, they're not going to be pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that's consistent and that keeps happening, that's a quick way to have high vacancy rates, as
Yeah,
you know.
we even go a step further, which is that when we take on a property, we detail it. So we take down the make, model, and serial number of all the toilets, appliances, anything we can get those numbers off of, so that in the event we have an issue, we can go and say, well, we know it's this type of unit. We come with the parts based upon what they're complaining about, and hopefully cut down on the cost and time that the tenants have to take away from work or whatever. So we are mindful. You have to understand, landlords get a bad rap, right? Property management companies get a bad rap because they think, oh, you're the mean landlord who just wants money, right? And we really aren't. We want to take care of the tenant as much as we want to take care of the owner, because like you said, there's a cost to turnover, right? And we want to eliminate that.
Even if they're being difficult, like the tenants, and you're like, we're going to evict them, I'm still very direct about, I don't want any issues to pop up in court, or I don't want them to have any issues. So AC goes down, and the person's not paying or hasn't been paying, but the AC went down a month after they haven't paid for a month or two. We're fixing their AC.
100%.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not, we're doing our job.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to follow the
That's
law.
a best practice, because
Absolutely.
inexperienced landlords who get emotional about things and don't have experienced property managers like yourself, they invariably say, well, the tenant's not paying me rent, so why should I spend money to fix anything? And I give them two reasons. One is exactly what Larry said, which is we want to go in with the best case to the judge when we're in front of them for a non-payment of rent case. When the judge has an idea that the tenants they're crying, they have their baby there, that they've lived in the heat for 3 weeks now, and you're a slumlord, judges don't look favorably on that. So that's number one. But number two, just as important,
You're human.
do you really want to have no AC, for example, or no water in your property for weeks on end? That creates mold. It creates for no water. All kinds of issues. You fix your property. It's your property. After the tenant's gone, it's still your property. Why would you ever want to do that? So,
No question. And we've fired a lot of clients who won't abide by our protocols,
yeah, good.
right? Because ultimately, those aren't the people we want to work with.
Agreed.
What does the management structure look like? So you mentioned managers, and then you mentioned they have to have their own vendors. What does that org chart look like?
We have a back office team, right, that's separated into accounting and administrative. We have an offshore team.
I was going to ask you that question.
Yeah, I finally made the move.
I want to hear about that, but
We can talk at length about that.
because I have same.
Right, which is phenomenal.
We do too.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. But I have a head property manager in each county. And then with them, they either have one or two assistant property managers, right? And those, depending on the size of the portfolio and the needs, their roles are very set, right? I want my head property managers making sure that the inspections are done, that the move-in, move-out. We do video inspections,
Great.
right? That the videos are done, that everything looks clean. The assistant property managers are going to help scheduling, help with work orders, help with, making calls on rent collection, posting 3-day notices. So everyone has their job. And that was a big thing for us because from 21 to 22, we really hit a stride, right? After COVID and all these landlords that didn't realize they didn't want to be in property management.
Yeah.
They moved over to us. And our vacation rental business boomed. And our commercial business boomed. And everything happened at once. And it really clogged the system.
Stretch your capacity, yeah.
It has been probably the most difficult year of business that I've ever had.
And compounding on that, as we all know, is finding good people in that hard job environment. It's gotten a little better, but late 2020 to 21 and into 22, it's difficult. Pay requirements have gone up, and just finding good people is difficult.
Yeah, and I don't know the data, but I think going to a 10,000 foot view, I don't think we've ever seen a boomerang like we saw. So if you remember in March 2020, no one thought they were going to have a job anymore.
Yep.
Right? To December 2020, where everyone's like, pay me 30x what you were paying me. You couldn't find anybody.
Or I don't need to work. Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. Yeah, the government's paying me to stay home. Why would I go work?
Right.
So we've never seen such a drastic shift in a short amount of time. So yeah, that thankfully I have a great group. I mean, I love my team.
It's great.
We are like a family. Yeah, the struggle was that we grew so quickly. Mm-hmm. And where I am very, very keen on building a system and having it run, there were certain things that I didn't have time to build the system, mm-hmm. right, and test the system before I really ran with it. Yeah. And I learned my lesson this year, that don't go against your natural instinct and what you are good at doing, because we're still cleaning out some of the issues that we've had over the last year, right? It costs some business. It costs some money, right? And, we learned, right? But what I preach to my team is that you're going to make mistakes, right? So you got to learn from them. Don't make them again. But I tell them, I said, I have a budget for every one of your F-ups. I'm not going to tell you what that budget is, but I got a budget for it. It's in my annual budget because it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
Right? And I said, I don't want that to be something that you sit around and sulk about. Yeah. Right? You have to understand that that's business. My dad always said to me, if you don't like dealing with problems, don't go into business.
It's true.
Period. We're problem solvers.
That's it.
Right?
We're firemen.
That's it.
Yeah. Putting out fires.
And hopefully you learn and you put in place the protocols.
Protections to not have the fires spring up.
those fires.
Or less of them. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So I forget the original question, but it has been a struggle with growth.
Yeah.
Right. And I think everybody struggles with growth. Mm-hmm. Unless you're like overcapitalized and you can just throw money at it.
Right.
Right. But that's not how I build my business. I build it one step at a time.
Good.
Right.
Methodically.
And so yeah, it's been an interesting couple of years. I don't think we've actually seen the end of the changes. There has not been stability, and people are more and more difficult to deal with every day, right? We went from the nicest our country has been probably since 9/11, right, where everyone's like, we're all in this together.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Let's get through 14 days, right? To just 0 to angry in 3 seconds.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just become very difficult.
I agree.
But you have to be above it.
Who deals directly with the customers? Is it the lead property manager, assistant property managers?
Oh, that's right. We were at structure. Yes.
I got you.
So it depends. Most of the time it's the head property manager, right? But through our portal, we have the communication function. So some of the times the assistant property managers will, say, hey, we just want to let you know we uploaded the estimate. Have a look, give us the approval, right, on work. But mostly it's the head property manager or me. Right, so if it comes to my desk, we typically have a problem.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy talking to the customer.
How many lead property managers do you have under you?
Yeah, so I have 4 lead property managers. And then now I have 6 assistant property managers who are facilitating.
What counties are you in right now?
Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach. We do some in Martin and St. Lucie, but the bulk of our business is in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach.
And what happens with those ancillary properties that are just outside of that? So let's say if you get someone who wants to give you a property in Naples on the West Coast, or in Melbourne, Florida, just north of Fort Pierce.
So Melbourne, we have a satellite office in New Smyrna Beach, and they do have a property management office there. It's not associated with us, but it is associated with the brokerage. It's sort of a deal that came before me.
Got it.
And so we'll send it up to them.
Got it.
In Fort Myers, for example, so I have my property manager who will handle, in Miami, will handle the Fort Myers.
They'll go over to the
straight
West Coast.
shot. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are your plans for expansion?
So my plan really revolves around what Kai's plan is.
Got it.
So a few years ago, we bought Illustrated Properties. We're very big on merging and acquiring brokerages, and so we are looking to move north within Florida and west. We don't have any current plans outside of Florida.
Great.
But anytime
there's enough room in Florida that you haven't conquered yet.
Right.
So, yeah.
Anytime that Kai's expands, I expand.
Yep.
Which is a nice thing.
That is.
Right? Because every time we get more eyeballs in the room, more agents on the roster, that's more business that we have the ability to pick up on.
Is Kai's looking to expand further?
Yes.
They're acquiring right now?
Yes.
What does that look like? I know we kind of touched on it before.
So that's a bit outside my realm. I don't typically get involved unless there's a property management division that exists, and then I go in and purchase that portion separately or as part of the deal.
And have you done that before?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So acquisition, that also happened late 2022. So we acquired right.
Yeah,
so
chaos.
Yeah. And I don't do well with chaos. I'm a control freak, and I like predictability. And I'm good at dealing with problems, but if I can avoid them, right? So I always say, well, this is a stupid problem to have.
Right.
Right?
I say that to myself.
I say that to myself
Yeah.
multiple times a day. Like, this is a stupid problem to have. One of the things with being a leader or being an owner is understanding that you're going to have a lot of those, this is a stupid problem to have, right? I think a lot of times we expect, right? So my anger, frustration, and unhappiness lies between my expectations and reality.
Amen.
Okay? Yeah? So
Yep.
it's closing that gap and understanding that not everyone is going to function like the owner of a business. Not everyone is going to look at things the same way as you or I look at things. And understanding and meeting people where they're at in that space is probably one of the biggest challenges of a control freak business owner like ourselves.
But I don't know who I've heard this from. It might have been like a Tony Robbins thing. It's like you get what you settle for, right?
Yeah.
So you also have to watch that, because if you're like accepting mediocrity from the team, that's what your business looks like.
Sure.
Yeah. So
it is, I spend a tremendous amount, more time than I care to admit, right? Going back and forth with these philosophical, quandaries in my head.
Yep.
Right? And it's hard. There's no solution other than to keep going and to make the best decision you can at the time, right? Because there's cause and effect, right? If you are tyrannical and you say, we're not going to settle for less than this, and get mad every time somebody doesn't hit that benchmark, well, now you're killing morale on your team. Now you're burning your people out.
I've had that challenge.
We've all done it.
I've tortured people.
You make mistakes
Yeah.
and you learn, right? Well, I've done it too.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. So there's it's this happy medium you have to find, which is really hard. I feel like we're always going to be looking for that. And every person is different. So that medium is different for everybody, right? Again, if I could project what's in my head all day long, people would be very scared, right?
Same.
Yeah, so I forget the question again, where we were at. We were at structure and, we were at growth and
taking over,
acquisitions,
merging, and
right.
acquiring.
So that really gets handled by Mike, my business partner, and the corporate side. Christina is his daughter, who is now the president of Kies, and she's doing a fantastic job moving into the space. And they're always looking. I mean, you know, our shingle's out all the time if you want to sell. You know, I was explaining to Jerron that now in the brokerage business, and you can probably attest to this, you know, it sounds like you're doing the right thing, keeping it a little tighter and smaller, right? As you grow, your overhead grows, right? And in the brokerage business now, you have compression of commissions, right? You have agents that want higher splits, right? Because you got the Compasses of the world, you've got the Realogies of the world who are offering rainbows and butterflies and cash,
big bonuses,
to come over, right? And so the company dollar is shrinking, and the thing that is keeping Kies and other brokerages alive is the ancillary services: mortgage, title, insurance, property management.
Yes.
Right? And so we're vital to the success of the company, right? And so, but as you grow, you have to keep growing. So we almost don't have a choice at this point.
That's my situation, right? It's like you made this choice to grow, Larry. So now you're like in the middle of that, and you either need to cut, go backwards, or you need to grow through this chaos, right? Because
nothing's getting cheaper.
Exactly.
Technology.
Exactly.
Every day there's more technology. Yep. I've advocated for a technology audit, right? How many people are actually using all of, I see you.
We've just gone through this, Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking how little people are using the technology. So then you have to question, is it really worth it? But expenses continue to grow. And it's like a real estate deal, right? You know your expenses are going to go up every year, right? Where can you make more? Can you raise rent greater than the expense, right? So, yeah, it's a struggle, and part of it is the game, right? You always want to grow and be bigger. It's the disease of never enough. What's next? But yes, Kies is constantly growing and merging. Here in Boca, we just acquired Meisner Grand and
that's right.
Exit Realty, the East Boca office. So that's just Boca, right? We did a deal in Pembroke Pines late 2022. But we're looking outside of our normal geographical footprint.
And I'll say this too: you have competition from the brokerage side of Kies has competition from other brokerages. I mean, Caldwell called me the other day. Was talking to Compass.
Yep.
There's a new company called Side. I don't know if you guys know of them. They're pitching a whole different model, which is very interesting. People call me all the time to buy the brokerage.
Oh, well, there's no question. Recruiting is one of the biggest parts of this business. Mm-hmm. And when you have a company like a Compass that can offer private equity money, right, to come over, if you're an independent contractor, I don't know if you could say no to that sometimes, right? And there's always going to be attrition. There's going to be agents that move back and forth, right? It's what the brokerage can provide to that agent, aside from the name. And so I think Kies does a very good job. You know, we put on ninja selling sessions. We do a tremendous amount of education. But again, if you're a seasoned agent, what do you care about? You care about how much you can sell and how much you're going to get, right? You know it. You're in the brokerage business. The top guys, you're not really making money off of them, right? So that is part of that changing business. The nice piece, though, is, and I'm sure you followed, is the purple bricks and the companies that, you know, the disruptors really haven't disrupted.
Agreed.
It's a relationship business.
This business is not as easy as the tech companies would like to think it is when they enter the space.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a good thing over the last few years to see. But yeah, we're always looking to expand.
Yeah. And my brokerage is more like, it's a brokerage, but it's a team. Like I'm the broker, but I'm also the team leader, and we just operate as a team. We don't have agents that sit outside of the team, right? And so we've been focused on growing the team itself, which is a different model because it's who's making it rain, me and my marketing and we're pushing that business to my agents, I'm doing a lot of the business still, but we're building it out where we're pushing a lot of the deals to the agents on the team, and we only have three agents right now that are doing that, but that's kind of been our model. So it's a little different from the let's go get 100 agents like the Keyes brokerage model. I'm sure there's teams
You're
within
more in the
Keyes.
Keller model, which is the teams.
Totally, you get
right?
it.
And we actually would like to get
teams.
more teams.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? From
Keller's
like
done a
a
good job
business
of that.
owner perspective, and I'm hearing what you're saying, you're the rainmaker, so it's all on you. Yeah? What I've been trying to do, and I took that on for a long time, right? And burned myself.
You can't live there forever.
You cannot live
like
there.
I can't sustain
Where
this
I'm
forever.
at now is hiring myself away.
Exactly.
Piece by piece, right? And that's taking longer than I would like.
Same.
Right? And it's hard.
It's hard.
You got to find, there is only one you.
Yep.
But there are other people that can do a good job too. It's letting go a little bit and allowing for that to happen.
I think a large portion of it is the psychological letting go. And I know it's not necessarily an analogy, but how I prove that point to myself is for so long on my vacations, I would go and I would put my out of office. Maybe I would not put it on, but maybe I would put it on. But I'd put it on. But then I'd go, at morning coffee with my wife, or then, we'd go somewhere and do a little excursion for an hour or two and come back. And the first thing I'd do is fire up my laptop. So probably about 4 or 5 hours out of the day, I'm on my laptop and I'm on vacation in Greece or in the mountains of North Carolina. And I notice that when I start sending emails back, then my inbox starts filling up more and more and more. Whereas last year, I went on an extended vacation, and I only checked my emails once a day, and I lived up to what I said to my team, which is I am only going to check emails once a day. And you know what? And I said, only copy me on things that I must be copied on and you need my expertise on, not my, I said you can go to my business partner, Conrad, or to one of the other attorneys. Or it was amazing. I might have had 15 emails versus 150 or 200 in my normal day. And it just proved to me that I don't know if that's long-term, something that I could do 52 weeks out of the year, but it just showed me how much busy work I was making for myself and how I was getting involved in situations I didn't need to get involved in.
There's no question.
Yeah. Again, because it makes you feel, the psychological component of it is that, for me at least, and I don't want to speak for everyone else, but it makes me feel needed. Like that I wake up in the morning and my team needs me to interfere in their in their business and in their files and in the closings and in the eviction cases and all.
Sure.
They don't. Most of the time, they don't need me. They just need me to put out a fire. That's all.
And my dad built a very successful business without computers and email.
Yeah.
Right. And I always ask him, like, how did you get things done? Right. Like, how'd you take care of things? Well, they'd call, my assistant would take a note, and maybe I'd call him today, maybe I would call him tomorrow. It just seemed to work. And I always say, I would love to go back and get a StarTAC.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It would be so difficult. If I wanted to text someone 44444666666, you're like, hey, I don't want email.
Get a beeper. Just give me a beeper. Yeah.
That's great. Email has been great and terrible all at the same time.
No, it is.
And I would like to see some rules.
Yeah.
Be implemented, some laws.
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it is a struggle.
Jerron's done a good job, though, I think, of it. He's built some interesting systems that you were able to, parts of your business that you've somewhat removed from entirely.
Some things, not nearly. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Some of the stuff I have been able to, and more, I'm able to remove myself from certain things. But all you have to just keep focused on. It has to be conscious to keep firing myself. What can I fire myself from? What tasks am I doing right now that I shouldn't have to do? But circling back to one of the things that's helped, maybe not so much support me personally, individually, but help support the team and to help lower our costs is having those virtual assistants. Like we have I think 7 or 8 of them in the Philippines. They obviously different countries you can have them in, but they've been really helpful. And I'd say probably we've only had maybe 2 of the hires that didn't work out. Pretty quickly we realized that they weren't a good fit, but most of them are great. And for the money, it's really helps our U.S. team that we have here. Yeah.
I've gone through a lot of assistants. I have a team of 5 offshore assistants, but they do high level tasks for us. Like they are almost as good as my transaction coordinators onshore.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
So we use them for
Great.
2 sets. One is for the back office, inputting leases,
Sure.
data
entry is easy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in property management, it can cause a huge problem.
Totally.
I just mean
So you
that
have to trust-
the data
holding
entry
deposit
is-
versus security deposit
Well,
makes
true.
a big difference.
They have to be
and that
accurate.
happened. But then the other side, and those are top level, right? College educated. I'd rather pay for quality.
What do you pay?
So per person, it's like $1,700 a month.
Okay. Do you go through a service?
Yeah.
What service?
It's Staff Boom.
Staff Boom. Okay.
Yeah. I got them from our insurance division. They were doing all the policies, all the quoting, everything. But I also have a group that handles our vacation rentals and specifically the communication side. Because I'm neurotic and I have a metric that I monitor that they have to respond to inquiries or issues in under 5 minutes.
Same.
And I watch that, okay? Because the difference between someone asking a question and not getting an answer in under 5 minutes and getting one could be booking or not, right? And so the problem that I had was and again, this is my insanity, I was monitoring all the communications.
And I do the same. Right. Yeah.
And the communication wasn't really, that we've had hits and misses.
Wasn't at your standard.
That's right. It wasn't even English sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we learned and we changed and we adapted because, as you know, in researching that, there are really like 4 levels of people that you can get. And for me, I always think about the cost today versus the cost tomorrow, meaning I could pay for the good quality now and not have to deal with the other stuff that's going to come tomorrow. And then I got to look at what my time is dealing with the stuff that comes tomorrow, right? And so I'd always rather get, and I look at the same thing in whether it's like clothing or anything, right? I see my wife goes and buys 13 shirts at Old Navy, and they're good for a month, right? They're only $7. I'm like, go buy a $70 shirt from a quality place that's going to last you 5 years, yeah? So it's that mindset that I approach that stuff in business too. I'd rather buy it once and do the right people.
We learned that lesson. We started at the $4 an hour range and we walked it up. Our best people are like $10.50 an hour, which is basically what you're paying.
Right. It's pretty standardized.
And we were going through a staffing organization like you described. We actually removed ourselves from that and we developed our own in-house models on how to do this. And so we hire direct through different job boards now. And so we've gone down the rabbit hole on that because we have found that if you're paying a staffing agency, I don't know, $11 an hour or whatever that is, the actual person's probably getting 7-ish. They're maybe getting other health benefits and stuff like that, but we're able to pay them a little bit more to them directly, their pocket. And so hopefully we acquire a better person is the thought.
And longer retention.
And longer retention.
Sure.
And so we've had some for a long time. They're like family. They're on the squad. That's been huge. I mean, we know the parts of the country in the Philippines that that maybe don't have great power or great internet or storms that are more common in certain areas, like that type of level of detail
You gotta
that we're
love
in.
the chickens clucking. You
Right.
remember that?
Oh, it's so great.
God,
And then there's like
Kills me.
standards and requirements,
Right.
like 2 screens. You have to have backup power. You have to have an extra computer, so when your computer inevitably breaks, you're still able to jump on. All of that stuff. And then the procedures on how to train these individuals, video training procedures. Like we've gone through and made a whole operations manual. It still needs love. Still a work in progress.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Let's create a staffing agency.
Yeah, you
here.
should probably
actually-
it's moving to South America now, right?
Right.
So you probably go hire people and run a staffing business.
So what we found too is, and we haven't executed on this though, but different countries within Latin America are maybe even better naturally English speakers. In some cases, like Belize and other countries, we found that could be even more effective. Yeah. So we're kind of moving around doing some experiments with that as well because we still.
But it does touch on the idea that to do more, you need to find ways to get the help and not break the bank.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
So there are options out there, and always being open to new ideas and concepts is what will help you change and grow.
For every 3.5 assistants abroad, I could hire one onshore person that may do a little bit better than my team once they're trained up.
Yeah.
So it's like
It's been our experience too.
it's
So we
good.
have kind of like our American staffer, like our client manager on our litigation eviction side will be an American person. And the model that we're creating is we started with the offshore assistants that were doing most of the data entry, the intaking of new forms, things like that. But now we're training up. It's our first experiment to train one up to be essentially more or less a client manager. We probably will still have an American client manager who will be like the senior client manager, who anytime someone's calling and needs to speak to someone will call the American client manager. They will be copied on all the emails, but at least the email correspondence, the checking of dockets, the making sure the case, the updates, email updates, all that, I think we can do that. So 90% of the job can be done by an offshore assistant. That's our theory. That's the next level we're moving to. So
It's doable. Like I'm telling you, my VAs are like they know real estate contracts better than most realtors.
great.
Abroad. Like that's 100% the case. It is absolutely doable. They're more than capable of doing almost everything. It's just sometimes an accent thing, right? That's it.
The only thing, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but we've just seen where our assistants tend to have very good English, but it's a cultural thing. There's something I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it's how it's put together sometimes. And explained, and like maybe they're not completely understanding how the American client is asking for something, and so that's why I want to have, at least for the time being, have an American client manager being
That's how
kind
I
of in
have
the
it.
middle there.
I have somebody up top that like kind of oversees everything, catches things, whatever.
Yeah. To finish off the property management, because I want to get into the syndication real quick, because that's pretty cool what you're doing in that. But speaking of new businesses, we're kind of joking that Larry's creating an offshore staffing agency. But you have created some ancillary businesses from this. For example, the background screening. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I'm
new
always
sources of revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
I look at business and I say they're builders and maintainers. I'm not a maintainer. I get bored very easily. So I always need a new project, a new offshoot, a new piece to the business. One of those is our background screening system. So it's myrentalscreening.com. We are primarily focused internally within Keys. The thing that I love about it is that it gives an approved or declined based on set criteria for everybody. So you could probably speak here for 2 hours about fair housing, right? And how there are tons of fair housing lawsuits. What we're trying to do is take one element out of that liability and say, everyone was screened exactly the same way. You were declined, right? Our system provides an adverse action letter with that declination, which 99.9% of real estate agents probably don't know what an adverse action letter is, right? And so we're trying to help prevent fair housing issues and lawsuits. And also, it's a very quick turnaround. So it typically gets back to our agents in under an hour. It's the full background: credit, criminal, eviction history, collection history, and it's a really great system, right? Awesome. I understand, that the Florida Realtors has, deals with Rent Spree or other companies.
That's who I often use, Rent Spree, because it's on the MLS.
Correct.
It's easy.
And God, that would be nice if I had that.
Sure.
Right. But what I think we bring is that level of protection. Great. Approved or declined. Now, we still tell the agents it's always the landlord's decision. It's not the agent's decision whether to approve or decline. It's always got to be the landlord. So the screening's been wonderful. And then also, we developed with a company Tenant Credit Boost. So we report on-time rent payments to the credit bureaus, which there are companies out there that package these. They call them like tenant benefit packages, right? Which, don't get me started on that. But we want to help people get out of the rental cycle. And most often, one of the biggest challenges is their credit score. And historically, there's not been a way for people to build their credit while they're renting. And so this isn't just for our tenants, this is nationwide. And so we report to Equifax and TransUnion. Experian has their own product, so they block us from doing it. But it's $10.95 a month. I mean, it's not a major money maker. This is really to help build the pipeline for our agents who put in a tenant to rent who doesn't have credit to qualify.
That's very cool.
And the agents love that, of course.
Agents love it. And when we start, so it's a tier 1 trade line too. So it comes in as if you're paying like an auto loan.
Amazing.
Or a credit card. And when people sign up, they can actually go back 2 full years and get 24 additional payments. So I got a call from an agent about 3 months ago and said, I was working with this guy, he couldn't qualify. We did this, his credit went up 34 points. He can now qualify for a loan.
Awesome.
And that's like the stuff you love.
That is. That's life-changing stuff, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And even if you're at a 670 to a 700, think about...
And the rate comes down, sure. They're
think
saving
about
money.
The PMI, over 30 years.
So what's the mechanics of this? So like if you're a property manager and want to use this tool that you guys have and offer, do the property managers input that every month? How does it work?
No. So what happens is a tenant will go and they go to tenantcreditboost.com. To register, all you need is your photo ID, a copy of your lease, and your landlord's contact information. Okay. Each month, our system will contact the landlord, first by email, and all they would have to do is click yes.
So just a button.
It's a button. Now, we always inevitably get the response, I don't get along with my landlord. Or if it was they wanted to go back 2 full years, my landlord passed away, or I don't have their contact information. No problem.
Because you can go back.
We can go back 2 full years at the start.
That's
24
cool.
additional payments. It's huge. So you can actually self-report with canceled checks or ACH confirmations, Zelle confirmations. So that's a really huge piece.
That's amazing.
And the other thing to remember is that every lease is different, right? Your lease may say your rent is due on the 1st, it's late after the 5th. Someone else's may say it's due on the 1st, late after the 3rd. The credit bureaus don't consider it late till after 30 days.
Got it.
So there's a buffer there.
Got it.
Right? And so, self-reporting can be advantageous sometimes. But it's a very simple system, and, it really helps. Our mortgage company is pushing it out too because they're trying to help, get people.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, if you can maybe see an improvement of 20 or 30 points, this must be amazing for lenders. You should roll this out to mortgage companies, all around the state or nationally.
It's a great thing, and it's separate. It's its own website, tenantcreditboost.com, and we're hoping that it helps. It's not sometimes it's not all about the money, right? No. We want to help people get out of the rental cycle.
Great win-wins. You make a couple bucks,
right.
but help them to get that dream of home ownership. It's awesome.
I wanted to ask you one other question about your property management business. As far as systems go, do you use a specific tool? Have you designed your own back end? What does that look like?
Yes and no. We use Propertyware. Okay. I know a lot of our contemporaries have switched to AppFolio, which has seen some headlines this year.
Buildium's another one, right?
Well, Propertyware actually owns Buildium. So RealPage is the parent company, and they own Propertyware, and they purchased Buildium 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. And then there's AppFolio, which has been the new guy on the block. A lot of people switched over. I didn't particularly love it, and so I kind of held back. And now, if you saw in the news that people are up in arms because they've decided to implement more fees, right?
Oh, interesting.
Migrating an entire portfolio is not an easy task. No. So those people are a bit stuck. So we use Propertyware for that. For our vacation rentals, we use a platform called Hostfully, but we have a third party where I sit on the board actually, where we built out the backside of the communications and running that in its most efficient way. So those are the two platforms that we really use.
Got it. Got it. As far as like, and so for like, what about phones? I've heard people have challenges with this that are managers as far as like communication with the tenant. Are you communicating through the tools?
Yeah. So what we do is anytime we move a tenant in, we give them a tenant handbook. Okay. And it's going to go through how to pay rent, all the way through to a cleaning list that we expect them to follow. But in there is a mandate that they put all maintenance requests through the portal because there's accountability there. I get copied, the back office gets copied, the manager gets copied. So we know that that's there. The last thing I ever want to hear is, well, I called the manager and told him about this. We're not going to play that game. We're going to take that out of the equation. Mm-hmm. On the portal, there's also the communication tab, which is like a running text message, basically. And we ask them to do that. Does everybody do that? No. Okay. Some tenants still call, some text.
They call the office, they text the manager, right?
Correct.
Which goes to like, I guess their personal phone or...
Right.
Yeah.
So they have a line that will forward, and we can change that if they're out of town or whatever. But a lot of times the problem in today's day and age is the second that you text from your personal phone to somebody, they've got that number.
Gotcha.
Game over.
Yeah.
Right? So what we try to do is have a recap on the portal. So log that had been communicated so that we don't get caught in a situation where it's a he said, she said, mm-hmm. I sent this in. Are there times where I have to have my property manager send me their WhatsApp and text messages? Of course.
Yeah.
Right? But it's more rare today than it was 3 years ago.
So my phone systems go through the CRM, and so everything is recorded. And so that's similar to what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's jump into the syndication here. So tell us kind of how this got started, the idea, and then give us the high level. We may ask a few questions about the details.
Right. So obviously I come from an investment family. And, my partner Mike, they own a lot of their offices, not all of them, but they own real estate as well. And we sort of looked and said, originally I had just approached him and said, hey, let's start investing. And then we looked at it and said, well, we're a private company, and Compass is coming in, and all these companies are coming in with all of these recruitment tactics, right? Stock, cash. We can't offer that because we're a private company, okay? So what can we do? And one of the ideas that was born out of that conversation was a concept we call the wealth builder, right? Most agents are, it's funny, the cobbler's kid has holes in his shoes. Most people don't invest in real estate.
What they're good at. Yeah.
And the other thing is that a lot of the agents, they don't have savings. They don't have a plan, right? They live commission to commission. And so what we decided to build was the wealth builder. So we are going to our agents and saying for a smaller amount of money, so the first one was $15,000 minimum investment, we will source the property. We will manage the property, and we're going to pay down debt so that you're not going to get a very small distribution that you're going to go waste on a steak dinner, right? And hopefully we're going to ladder them so that in 5-10 years, you're getting 4, 5, 6 quarterly distributions. That's a retirement. These are long-term holds. These are not flips. These are long-term holds. My family's philosophy, we don't sell. Right? Wealth gets built over time. Yeah. And if you're just going to hold it and sell it, then you've got a 1031. Then you're playing the tax game. Right? So these are designed to be long-term holds for long-term distribution.
Got it. And by long-term, what's the plan?
The current plan is 20 years.
Got it. Okay. Yep. Great. And for each property, what's the exit time frame estimated?
So disposition is 20 years.
Oh, for the full, okay.
For the full thing.
For the whole property.
There are obviously clauses if someone wants to get out or needs to get out. But the idea being that we want this to be cash flowing for a very long time.
Okay, amazing. And so tell us about the first property that you found and how the syndication went.
Yeah, so again, this was all happening during the same time that we did the acquisition, that we added all these properties that we were doing. Yeah, it was, I tell you, it's been a crazy year and a half. And again, because I am borderline psychotic and I have to know how every little piece works in the machine, I pretty much did everything the first round. From the legal SEC pieces to the underwriting every property to the loan, everything. And so it went very well. We started the conversation in May of 2022. So we were still in a pretty hot market, right? By the time the legal documents were completed in September, things were a little different in the market. And when we initially started, we had probably over 100 agents that were interested, and that dwindled a little bit as people got a little more concerned about where the market was going. But the biggest challenge was the accredited investor piece, because contrary to what most people think, most agents do not make what people think they make a year. And so the number of accredited investors within a company of 3,500 was a lot smaller than we thought.
So it had to be, you had to take accredited investors only?
So you're allowed up to 35 non-accredited investors. Okay. Now you can go out and you can do different series work. You can get, different setups for these pieces. But what we're dealing with here is not a $100 million deal.
Yeah.
So the cost is prohibitive legally and compliance-wise each year by doing that to start. And we offered it out to up to 35 non-accredited investors. And so we raised $1 million for the first round.
And that was your goal? Your goal was $1 million?
Yeah, we it's funny. We sort of we weren't going to be disappointed. We were going to go by with what we wanted. My business partner and I had decided, we're going to find a building that we like, and then whatever shortfall there is, we'll make it up.
Got it.
Right? And so we had raised $1 million, and we found, I think I underwrote about 73 properties.
Wow. That's a lot of properties. Yeah.
It was a lot of properties.
It is, yeah. That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But a great learning experience, right? Sure. And so we found a property in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a commercial strip right on the main street, 12-bay unit, 12-bay property, and we were able to negotiate and buy it for, it ended up being about $400,000 under its appraised value.
Amazing.
So we did pretty well. Interest rates were also rising. So, that was another game you have to play.
Sure.
And we ended up with a 6% rate, which at the time was pretty good. I always talk about my dad, but I learned a lot from him. And he always said, just keep hitting singles. Every once in a while, you'll get a double and a triple. And maybe once in your career, you'll get the home run, right? I would call this a double.
Okay.
Good. It's a solid double. And, now we're in the process of number 2.
Amazing.
Right. So we're going out and, we're not looking in Florida. The insurance is a very big fear factor for me. You may get a slightly better ROI depending on where you are, but we're looking at the happy medium of cash flow and ROI and what the costs are and more conservative approach to things. So,
what does the structure look like for the cash flow to the investors, like return-wise, annually, or what is that?
Yeah, so again, we structured this and we're very clear with our investors that we were going to pay down debt. Okay? That they shouldn't expect distributions for at least 7 years.
I love that. That's great.
Set it and forget it. We don't want the pressure, and we don't want them to be getting $300 they're going to go blow on a steak dinner. Yeah. This is meant to be something to help them with retirement and with wealth building, right? We, from a numbers perspective, when I was doing the underwriting, we didn't want anything under a 15% IRR and 7x ROI over the 20 years.
15% IRR,
Yeah.
levered,
Not levered.
unlevered 15% over 20 years.
Right.
That's like, so some people don't appreciate this, but when you're looking at other OMs or from other syndicators, they're underwriting 5 years.
Yeah.
It's easier to get your 15% unlevered, which is amazing, unlevered IRR in 5 years because you're turning the asset, you're getting rents up really quickly, you're getting that huge hit, and then you're selling out very quickly.
Correct.
Now, if you hold for 10 years, like we underwrite 10-year 10-year holds on our stuff, just as we plan to keep everything forever too, but we underwrite 10 years. And so when you look at that, you're like that last 5 years, you're only growing by whatever increase you've set for each year, which might look like 3% inflation, right? Or 2%, whatever it might be. And so you don't get that huge IRR showing up at the end of that 10 years or 20 years, for example, right?
So you can imagine it takes
That's a good deal.
long time to find that.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
a good deal.
negotiations. You have to put out a lot of LOIs, you get a lot of no's, and also we're in a time where sellers are still a bit unrealistic.
Now, so you raised $1 million. What was the purchase price on that?
It ended up like 3.1.
So that's like, I would bet, well, maybe, but like that's a lot of work for 3.5 for a $3 million deal.
Is.
And you're not taking the bulk of the profit, I guess, because you just raised a whole bunch of money for other people to go do this. So I'm guessing this is like call it a exercise in qualifying that this makes sense, right?
Correct.
Because if you're going to do $3
million,
million,
the deal was structured,
yeah,
was not as if it were our everyday job, trying to needle out every penny to the GPs.
Yeah, this is a feasibility study for you, almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we've learned, and we are going to proceed slightly differently. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I absolutely love about partnering with Mike Pappas is the guy is a gem. I mean, if there's nobody that cares more about his people than him. And so he's made his money. He wants to give back, right? So it's the old, the levels of your career: learn, earn, and return. Right?
I like that.
And he's in the return phase. I got to keep knocking on the door. I'm in the earn phase. Like, go on.
And you're like,
I got kids,
him,
But he cares about returning and making sure he takes care of the people that took care of him all of these years, right?
The investors got the best. Well,
This
arguably,
is probably the best investor deal that people could have gotten
done.
involved.
Period, because
Period,
you
the end.
put all your the amount of time you put into underwriting that many
Everything.
deals and doing that deal.
But I don't see it as a loss, right?
Yeah.
I gained a tremendous amount of
But
understanding.
you're in growth mode. You're like, what's next?
And so now, it's the what's next.
Yeah.
The day we closed, there were 4 of us. It was what's next.
Yeah.
Right. That's the next day. It was the survey went out to every agent. Who's in for the next one?
Cool.
Right.
And just to kind of dive slightly deeper on that topic, what Benji was saying, and we've talked offline about this, is in most deals, if you're just going to go into a third-party syndication deal, the GPs are in it to make a ton of money, and they're going to charge all kinds of fees: an acquisition fee, a disposition fee, management fees. On top of the regular management, of the property, they're charging management fees on top of that. All different types of fees. That it's fee. It's fee based. That's not what Benji was doing here.
What fees are you charging? Like, is there an asset management fee?
There's just a straight GP percentage.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's unusual.
It's very unusual.
Okay.
So.
But again, this
back
is
to the
proof of
purpose of the
concept,
vehicle. Yeah,
right?
Sure.
It was amazing to see how many people were excited by this, because if you had $15,000, what are you going to do with that? What building are you going to buy? You could go into one of the crowdsourcing groups, or you could find these faceless companies on the internet where you can go and dump $15K into. But it's amazing how many agents were thirsty for this. They said, why didn't you do this 20 years ago?
My big issue with most of those companies that do the syndication is they are planning to exit fast, and that's not my mentality. So that's why I went ahead and built my portfolio. Right. And because that's like it's not what I'm looking for.
And that's building wealth. right?
Exactly.
99% of America, when you talk about wealth, you talk about owning your own home.
Paying off your mortgage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have the mortgage burning party. Yeah.
Right. That's not.
After 30 years. Right. Yeah.
Right. Everyone has a different definition of wealth.
Yeah.
And that is kudos to you because that's forever. That's generational. Right. And that's what we're aiming to do too.
Are you now, given the nature of what you just described, are you cost segregating this stuff? What are you guys doing?
And so we're doing a study.
Okay.
Okay. It's funny because we never did that with our family stuff, right? We never rapidly depreciated. We always really played a very conservative game. And so it's not in my nature to go do that, right? It's not correct, but I almost equate it with, we had a lot of our friends who back in the 90s refinanced, took all the cash out, and then lost every property. And I know it's not the same, but in my mind, I think, like, why am I playing games, right? So we are doing a study to see, but it isn't historically our play.
Yeah.
I'm just finishing my cost segregation studies now, and I was of that mindset for a while, but I think there's a middle ground.
Absolutely.
You can be a long-term holder. You can still do something more aggressive like cost segregation, accelerated depreciation, get your money back from your taxes. Essentially, it's your future earnings, really, calling it earnings, and then use that. As long as you're using it for wise investments, again, you're rolling that into more wise investments.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
And if it were my own personal property, it would be different. Remember that, what are you going to do with that cash in this particular deal, right? You're going to pay, we could put it towards the debt, sure, okay, but we have a reserve. We've got that all set. Okay. So it becomes a question of...
What are you going to do with it in this deal?
Right.
Maybe I don't understand entirely, but you're passing that depreciation down to all investors, right?
That would be the goal.
Yeah. So for a real estate agent, that's pretty sweet to a degree. If you're making money to kind of offset this year, right?
But now what happens?
1 year, that's it.
And then what are you going to do? Then I'm going to get calls next year.
Yeah,
where's my depreciation?
Where's my depreciation?
Exactly.
So
and the one other thing too. What happens if one of those investors wants to exit after year 2?
Correct.
They're going to have to pay back that cost segregation.
That's
so
correct.
they're really just borrowing money from the future.
The more people and investors you have, the more difficult.
Yeah.
Because
They're herding cats.
Everyone's seeing things through their lens. That's in life anyways. Yeah. And so you don't know what their plans are, what they're looking at. I have some investors who probably won't come into the next one, not because they don't want to, but because they may just not be a good fit for us, right?
Some may not be invited. Possibly.
I don't need to field calls from your spouse. Yeah. So it just you learn, right? We're all just learning, and so it's been a fun adventure thus far, and we're very excited.
And so you're already looking at new deals for round number 2. Good.
Yeah, it's very hard right now.
Yeah, it is very hard.
Sellers still think that it's 2022 in April, and rates think it's today, and never the two shall meet.
We're right in the middle, or I don't know where we are in it, but we've left the market of low rates, increasing prices, increasing for 10, 12, 13, 14 years. And we're entering a new phase and no one knows exactly what it's going to look like and shape out to be in a year or two, but I think it's going to be extended higher rates for extended periods of time. And I think once we start seeing foreclosures on these multifamily properties, when the debt resets and the office and commercial, that's when you're going to see deals.
Correct.
But that may take...
Patience is key.
24 months, 36 months till you start to see these deals.
And that's the beauty, is that that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to raise a fund, because I didn't want pressure to spend, right? We're raising per deal.
That's great.
And you don't want to just go spend to spend. You get into trouble that way.
Did you pick the deal and then go raise the money, or did you raise the money and you said basically this is my discretionary $1 million to spend?
Correct.
Okay.
And if there was something over and above, then we were
You'd
going to
cover the
go
gap.
and cover
Cover
it.
it, yeah.
Right.
So
That's a
you're looking
fortunate
at a
spot
range
to
of
be,
deals,
but
right. Range of prices.
Right. Correct.
Again, got it.
Sweet deal for the investors.
Yeah.
Sweet
Well, that's
deal.
right. And that's what we wanted. Remember, that was the goal. And it's funny because I have a lot of friends and a lot of people that wanted to be in on it. And we were very strict about this is only for our people. Right.
I would love to get in a time machine and go 5 years from now and look backwards and see what the average attrition rate for your agents are at Kies or Mike's agents are at Kies versus the agents that got into this deal. And the whole goal was to lower your attrition rate.
Attrition and recruitment. And say, look, we have this ability, we have this product for you. We don't care just about your sales. We want to help you when you can't sell anymore.
Yep.
Right? We want to help you retire, because how many of our agents actually have a Roth or a 401k or any
or real estate assets
outside
of their home.
That's like the best thing I've heard of, like offering for a brokerage.
For a brokerage, I was
think
excited
anybody
when
does
I
that
heard
better.
Yeah. Good kudos to you and Mike.
Look, it wasn't my idea alone. I'm not going to take credit for it.
But both of you, but you put in the hard work and the elbow grease.
It's fun. These are the things I enjoy and keep my mind going, because the everyday maintaining and doing kind of bores me.
Could you do this outside of Kies, like just for yourself for
investing?
Now that you've learned it,
absolutely.
On the side. You
right. So all those friends that wanted to go by,
here I am.
I'm ready.
You're
to
the guy. Benji's
That's right. That's right.
Good.
So it's been great.
Yeah, this is awesome. Any other questions, Benji? No.
It's been great learning from you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
You're an awesome guy. We'll put your contact information in the description of the video, your website, and how to reach you. We're looking forward to many more years of working together and your friendship.
No, you guys are wonderful.
Thank you.
Jared and I have worked together, he said 10 years, and the best. Honest to God.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm blushing. Thanks, Benji. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel.